employment. Now soon they'll be hawking in your estate. Yet the relationship between the two countries remains stable and steadfast. And this week too, the DP reminded us of the obvious. He is in charge whenever the head of state is out of town. A simple statement, but in politics there is just nothing that happens or is just said. There was a reason behind it, even as we begin to consume the new notes. Remarkably, the members of parliament want to consume more of our taxes. The justification, everyone in our position gets what we are looking for or seeking. Now tonight, this is our main focus. Later, my guest will interpret the cartoon of the week and on time back in time to a period where members of parliament received rare kind of visitors in parliament. But first, it's my take. Now, the headline or the hardline stance taken by members of parliament over housing allowance they recently allocated themselves is, in our opinion, demonstrates their disdain for the rule of law. They seem to live in a different world, far away from the voters who pay taxes to keep them in office. At the heart of the matter is the 250,000 shillings monthly housing allowance backdated to October of last year. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission has contested this, terming it illegal and subsequently taken the matter to the court for adjudication. The law stipulates that all matters of compensation for all public officers are handled by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Moreover, they are oblivious of the economic hardships the country is currently facing. In fact, other public officers such as the police, teachers and doctors who deserve better are starved of pay rise, that is, because of lack of cash. Now, last Thursday, the members of parliament held an informal meeting. In other words, they had a kamkunji at parliament buildings and fought off all criticism against their greed and resolved to defend themselves in court through lawyers to be hired by the Parliamentary Service Commission. And you will be paying for it. It's extremely odious that the members of parliament cannot learn from the public's anger and tame their appetite and greed. Rather, they respond to the public's discontentment, or instead of responding to that, they issue threats, including purposing to disband the SRC, which they perceive as a threat to their raptureness, and cut down their pay to about 16,000 shillings. Indeed, they had gone all out to discredit other government officials and other agencies, accusing them of drawing huge salaries and allowances and arguing, in our opinion, wrongfully, that they deserve better. To be sure, the work of MPs is to serve and not to enrich themselves. In the past, the members of parliament never earned big salaries, and those who took up their jobs went out of the way to represent the voters. Interestingly, not for self-gain. Members of parliament, in our opinion, and in the opinion of many, are well paid and draw so much in allowances, as it were, including pay for sitting, committees, and besides the fat pay, they have lucrative mortgage schemes, car grants, and generous medical allowances. They cannot complain of poor pay when, more often than not, most of them are absent from parliament and hardly participate in their core duty. Legislation. We have severally canvassed this matter, and we say again, we shall not tire. The public must put pressure on the members of parliament to stop this tyranny, where they raid the national coffers and draw cash for themselves when everyone else is grieving. We must tame their appetite. And, of course, tonight, we borrow the words of Eric Fromm, a German-born American social psychologist, psychoanalyst, sociologist, humanistic philosopher, and Democrat. Greed is a bottomless pit which exhausts the person in an endless effort to satisfy the need without ever reaching satisfaction. My guest tonight, Irene Otieno, Mark Bichache. Jacoyo Midio was supposed to be here, but he's not here. So we have Peter Kaluma and, of course, Cyprian Nyamwamo. My name is Ken Mijungu. Welcome to our program tonight. Join the conversation online. The hashtag, as always, is Sidebar. At NTV Kenya, at Ken Mijungu, Sidebar has a special setting right here tonight.
SRC should not tell Kenyans that they are concerned about the wage bill.
Members of Parliament and Senate, the setting of their remuneration and benefits is the exclusive responsibility of SRC.
Do you think SRC needs to buy new vehicles for 99 million? Why are we not holding all the agencies to account?
SRC cannot purport to say that some can enjoy house allowance benefits while others will not.
The CSS and PSS do not get a house allowance.
We've sacrificed so much, let so much go for the sake of serving the people of Kenya.
A good point to begin our discussion tonight, and I'd like to find justification because among everyone I have listened to, save for members of parliament and Francis Atwoli, I can't see anyone who's justifying that the members of parliament indeed need to be paid the 250,000 shillings. They've issued a lot of threats. I'll get to that, but first, let me try and find justification from the only honorable member of parliament here, Peter Kaluma, although they'll disagree with me now that you're not honorable member of parliament, you know.
We want to
but
check.
Give us the justification, Peter, because you've even presented something regarding this to the Speaker of the National Assembly.
Ken, I've listened to what you've said, and my surprise is how misinformed, Kenyans are. I was not to come to this show unless, I made a decision to come and listen to the lies, Kenyans are being told about MPs and their pay and other matters. Let me clarify that the power to set remuneration for all state officers is a function of SRC, not Parliament, not any other body. And by the way, Parliament is not in the business of disbanding any commission. So even these things the media is importing, you want to disband SRC, you want to do what? You cannot disband SRC, you know it, without amending the constitution because you'll be changing the structure of government. The power to provide Parliament with facilities and cater for matters welfare is vested by Article 127 of the Constitution in the Parliamentary Service Commission, which is a commission the people of Kenya created for good purpose. So this misinformation which has been going out that there is some house allowance or pay we have given ourselves, I want to assure you only came to hear where you found it, and if possible, you give me this thing you are talking about, these millions. But I want to tell you that we need to, have a bit of respect for, the leadership we have per time. The only reason as to why the pay for MPs is being debated for eternity is that the provisions which were put in the Constitution for the judiciary, the provisions which were put in the Constitution for commissions and independent officers, which my brothers will tell you says you cannot change the salary or the remuneration of state officers serving in those levels to their disadvantage, was not put for Parliament. So the pay of members of Parliament, because it is politically sweet in our idle moments, has been made some sport. Every time Kenyans have nothing to debate, but then you would think members of Parliament even run some bank somewhere there. Ken, all these things you are talking about, we are earning and other things, I wish you would pay them to MPs. It is a falsehood. I want to hear from you. When I sat as a member of Parliament to determine my pay, and then I want to tell you just the last thing. Kenyans created very many commissions. There is a Judicial Service Commission. If you remember, there is a time we had issues with corruption in the Judicial Service Commission. When we were removing it, Kenyans were confusing Judicial Service Commission for judiciary. You remember what was being said in the media is that by seeking to remove Judicial Service Commission members, we were interfering with the independence of the judiciary. I think this debate is going on as if we made these determinations because people also confuse Parliamentary Service Commission, which is an independent commission,
with Parliament.
For Parliament.
Okay.
We are not Parliament. I don't determine my pay. And let me tell you on matters, facilities around Parliament. Ken, let me now clarify that if you look at Article 127, sub-article 6A and E, those facilities are defined. It is wrong for SRC to purport to dictate how many glasses of water I take in Parliament in a committee sitting or in the plenary. That is for Parliamentary Service Commission. The AG itself, when this matter, came up, and I want to say that I hear this matter is in court, I don't know what it is about. Because I even hear MPs are being sued over decisions which are not theirs, which are not being implemented by them. But remember, in a good situation, Ken, you would expect Salaries and Remuneration Commission, and as an independent commission, not subject to the control or direction of anybody, to sit with Parliamentary Service Commission if they have an issue about their constitutional mandates.
Okay.
Why are we rushing? Okay. And by the way, I will tell you later that if they disagreed, if they sat as commissions which respect one another, they would have sought the opinion of the Attorney General.
Okay.
And in this case, I can confirm to the nation
it never happened,
that the Attorney General was consulted.
Okay.
And in the advice of the Attorney General, the right to housing, accommodation, or rent in lieu under Section 31 of the Employment Act is not remuneration.
Okay.
It is a facility.
Okay.
And by the way, the AG told SRC that is not your province. And you remember there is even a time SRC was seeking to dictate the per diem for judges and such other facilities which are for the JSC to provide. And the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary wrote and said that is our province.
Okay.
JSC went to court with PSC and it was settled so. The thing is that let us, put SRC to a situation where it can work instead of, continuing this endless pot which is going nowhere.
All right.
About members of parliament. I don't pay myself.
Quite some background. Before I speak to any of the other guests tonight, you mentioned that the Parliamentary Service Commission is a totally independent body, independent from Parliament.
Yes,
and
yes.
they're the ones involved with fixing your salaries and all.
Not salaries.
Facilities. All right.
Parliamentary facilities. If you look at Section 31, which I referred to,
okay,
it requires every employer to provide each and every employee with housing at the place of work or near,
okay,
or in a stead thereof, rental.
Okay.
What the AG advised SRC, okay? And then those letters, I imagine once they serve us would be in court in that matter to confirm how, malicious they are being.
All right.
They were told that is a facility falling within the purview of PSC under whose charge MPs fall. And it ends at that. So that I'm telling you, SRC is interfering with the constitutional mandate of another commission.
Great. The reason why I brought that up, and I'm coming to Cyprian, because you said it's completely independent. I'd like to know how independent this is from Parliament. When the Speaker of the National Assembly is the chairperson, 7 members appointed by Parliament are there, and 1 woman and man appointed by Parliament from persons who are experienced in public affairs but are not members of Parliament. How independent is this commission from Parliament? Just briefly.
Ken, can you also read Article 249 of the Constitution?
Which is okay.
When the Speaker of National Assembly sits as Speaker, the Constitution will tell you that he is sitting as a Speaker of National Assembly and as the head of the institution of National Assembly. When the Speaker of National Assembly chairs the meeting of Parliamentary Service Commission, he is the chair of Parliamentary Service Commission, the same to the Judicial Service Commission.
Where do you draw the line? No, Peter. Where do you draw the line?
Let me tell you where the line is.
Yes.
Where the line is.
Yes.
You may not know it, but the institution of Parliament has its roles in Article, from 93 to 96. But did you know that even Parliamentary Service Commission itself presents a budget which we disallow or allow, with the Speaker seated there now as the chair of...
Okay.
Now, this is in law. This is what the Constitution says. If you read Article 249, sub-Article 3, it tells you the people of Kenya have decided to establish, these commissions, the Chapter 15 commissions. And these commissions shall be independent and not subject to the direction of or control of anybody.
That's on paper.
I know it will surprise you.
That's on paper.
But when PSC was making a determination under Article 127 and Section 31 of the Employment Act to pay these allowances, we didn't know about it.
Really?
I would personally wait to sue them if they never decided so.
Okay. Let me get to Cyprian. You've listened to all this flowery packaging of what's happening in Parliament, but I don't know if you picked any part that concerns you with what Mheshimiwa Kaluma is saying.
Thank you very much, Ken, for having us. And I want to say that what Honorable Peter Kaluma is saying is right. And it is there in the law, it's in the Constitution. But it is upon knowing these facts, that we arrive at this table tonight to help the people of Kenya know what the issues before the nation truly are. What are the issues before the nation? The first point is what is in the province of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, as established in the Constitution in Article 230. The work of the Salaries SRC is very clear as relates to state officers, who members of parliament are. All right? So they have published a gazette notice of 2017, which is available, I think, in the public. If you don't have a copy, I have accompanied myself. It actually is Gazette Notice number 6516 of 2017. It says officers in the executive, officers in the judiciary, officers in the National Assembly and the legislature generally. So it broke down and detailed what benefits are. One of the things that Honorable Peter is saying that is not a benefit is the car loans and mortgages. Those in any law...
Ken, I have not said that.
No, you are disputing in terms of what you are given and what benefits you have and what benefits you don't have and what are facilities in Parliament.
No, don't impose things I have not said.
So, if you look at this breakdown here, Ken, I don't know whether you have a breakdown, then a member of Parliament is broken into several columns. The first column is monthly gross remuneration package, which a member of the National Assembly gets 621,250. This is SRC. You can see it's very clear. It goes on to talk about special parliamentary duty allowance, 150,000. It goes to talk about committee seating allowance, maximum 80,000. Transport facilitation allowance, 11 of December 17, 120,000. Airtime, 15,000. Goes to talk about total before allowance, 339,270. House allowance, 250,000. This is what they are talking about. Now, goes on to talk about, this is what was submitted to the negotiation plenary. Total inclusive of house allowance for, what is this, for the member of the National Assembly, 425,270. And then you go on to talk about the details that they have given as a breakdown.
Okay.
Let me finish.
If we proceed this way, we will lose track, because the only assistance I want to give my brother is that this Gazette notice is talking about was quashed by the High Court. And remember, that decision was appealed by SRC. The stay application they sought to enable its continue was also dismissed. So the request I'm making is that
we cannot
table before Kenyans the actual remuneration. And let me help you.
No.
We cannot go back to you. We cannot go back to you.
Member of Parliament today,
you'll have an
I'm
opportunity.
assisting him so that we inform.
The assistance.
We'll have an opportunity.
Peter, I've not requested for your assistance.
You know, Ken, I want an informative debate today.
Yes, you will have an opportunity.
That is Ken's work.
Go to the Gazette notice.
We will get to it.
Go to the Gazette notice of 2013.
It is here. The Gazette notice of 2013 is right here.
Yeah, that is the one being used to pay MPs.
Okay.
So,
yes.
What is before the country right now is about the 250,000 housing allowance consolidated going back to last year, paid over 8 months up to, I think, March this year, which, as you may know, some of us have already gone to court. SRC itself has gone before court. And the members of Parliament are saying that is part of their employment under the Employment Act, and that they cannot be denied housing allowance. And they are saying that permanent secretaries and CSS get housing allowance.
Which has been disputed by SRC.
Which has been disputed by SRC.
It's a total lie.
It's a total lie.
Which has been dismissed by
SRC.
So
yes.
The question before the people of Kenya today is very simple, by the way.
Okay.
And that's why I don't see that there is a disagreement with what Peter is saying.
Yes.
The question before us is, are we as the people of Kenya going to be governed by the Constitution and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, and are we going to allow it to perform its mandate, or we are going to allow the Parliamentary Service Commission to create a certain power and purport to be giving members housing allowance and calling it facilities of working within Parliament.
Okay.
That is the question before us, and our answer is very emphatic. It's very clear. The Parliamentary Service Commission cannot construct powers and a mandate for itself beyond what the Constitution has awarded.
It's given it. Okay.
And the SRC must be allowed to do their job.
Okay. Mark, I'm
And
going
we
to
cannot allow them to be bullied the
By
way
Parliament.
they were bullied in 2013 in the Deputy President's home in Karen. That is what we don't want SRC to suffer again.
Yet again. All right, I'm going to come to you, Mark, because I want you to sum this. But let me speak to Irene. Irene, your view of what Mheshimiwa Kaluma is saying.
I think, Ken, for me, the discussion around this table right now seems to focus around SRC and Parliamentary Service Commission. But the substance of which we're talking about is taxpayers' money. So I'd just like to say that as a Parliamentary Service Commission is viewing it like a fight between them and PSC, it should be a shift that SRC is just an agent of the taxpayers, the people who pay. So whether you said you're not dismantling SRC, whether you do or not is irrelevant, because the people you have to contend with are the taxpayers at the end of the day. So the discussions around the 250,000 must be viewed in the lenses that it is not money that the Parliamentary Service Commission or the MPs can just descend around the arena of tax and misuse it. Our country and the details and the realities that we live with show that we can clearly not afford 250,000. This is a country that the same government says minimum wage is 13,000, around about 13,000. So you're looking at 13,000 as a minimum wage, and these taxpayers then are compelled to pay 250,000 as an allowance, which our position is that the housing allowance is inbuilt within the consolidated pay that the SRC has approved for members of parliament. So MPs just need to know that housing allowance is inbuilt as a consolidated pay, so there is no discussion that the taxpayers would further fund an additional housing allowance to state officers. And I think Mheshimiwa is also being not very honest, because a reading of that Employment Act also details that the people who are being given a consolidated pay then are not eligible for a housing allowance. And there's a distinction between a housing allowance and a housing benefit that the SRC has clearly established. So for just starters, Ken, I'd want to say that we need to be clear that this money we are discussing is really taxpayers, and we need to respect that this system is being funded by taxpayers. And the arrogance we display at times really think that the money falls from somewhere, but it is hard and hard. Secondly, Mheshimiwa, you had your time. Secondly, you also mentioned that you're not dismantling SRC, but we also do not want a redundant SRC. By your action of cutting down its budget, what does that mean to we as taxpayers?
An expression
so
of
SRC is
intention.
it's an expression, but all of it is, the writing is on the wall, and we've already had the discussion with the Mheshimiwa and team, and they say that is the angle we are doing. Touch ours, we touch yours. Yes. And so that should not really be the discussion.
I'd like to take you to something before I speak to Mark. Tell me, how is it consolidated? How come the allowance are pretty much set? We can see them clearly. Why would you think this is consolidated?
Because we have had, if reading of the court decision, that was the deputy governor's decision, the court decision of the deputy governor, the SRC came out clearly and mentioned that 60% is this amount and 40% is what is inbuilt, having what? The consolidated pay. So that is something that SRC can clearly state, but our position, and having had reference to SRC, which is the agent of the people, it clearly stipulates that housing allowance is inbuilt within the consolidated pay, so there hence is really no discussion around an additional housing allowance.
Mark, I want you to come in. Having summed, this is from tax, right, civil society, and from a member of parliament. Looking at this from outside, what comes to your mind when you listen to this conversation wholesome?
That we need to educate our leaders that no constitutional line, article, sub-article, or whatever is an excuse for greed. You cannot hide under the constitution and justify a parliament that has health benefits for your wife and your clan day. You cannot justify a parliament that sat down and decided that they need 5-star accommodation. There is no way you can justify on God's green earth a house for 250,000 Kenya shillings that you purport to use only the times when you're missing parliament sittings. It is not justifiable. I do not need to be a lawyer. I just need to have common sense. Because in this country, if you earn 100,000 shillings a month, you are in the top 5% of this country. For how long shall we insulate our leaders from the reality of being Kenyan? The truth is there is no Kenyan who sits at home who imagines taking home 300,000 shillings a month and complains about it. There is no Kenyan who imagines that there is a house for 250,000. Pray tell, when you go back to your county and your constituency, which house will you hire for 250,000? And number two, when you are supposed to represent me in matters of housing and the president's Big Four agenda, and you have no idea how someone earning 13,000 minimum wage in Nairobi is going to find a house, which legislation will you pass? How will you understand how it feels to walk in the streets of Nairobi with bottomless shoes? The truth is, if we continue to insulate our leaders from the reality of Kenyan life, they will never lead us. I had the privilege of visiting Europe one time, and I happened to have breakfast with the president of Finland. I could not tell the difference because he sat with me and ate with me in my lowly place. That is a leader who understands. Leaders who do not know where the nearest kibanda is and only visit them for campaigns, and then are insulated from healthcare issues, are insulated from housing issues, are insulated from the reality of their legislative agenda, or indeed lack thereof, cannot lead this country. And it does not matter, PSC, SRC, we, the people, are telling them. It's very simple.
It's our money.
If you need housing allowance, it cannot be more than 80,000 in Kenya. Not more.
How much is it currently?
Listen, if you want a house in Karen, posh suburb, I can get you a 4-bedroom house at 75,000.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, I can show you.
I doubt that.
I can show you
that though.
I can show you any day.
But I
Okay.
think even it's not about
see,
the quantum,
Ken,
really. It's about it's an
Ken,
unconstitutional act. The
that's what I'm
Constitution
saying.
says the SRC has a mandate. So let's not even discuss quantum, the unconstitutionality of it.
Proceeding.
Yes. Now that they've spoken.
You know, I've listened to my brother reading the Gazette notice in which he says we were given 250,000 in house allowance consolidated with other things. I heard that. And now, what is wrong by being paid what you confirm SRC gazetted? It is as simple as that. I also hear our my sister and brothers here, you know, to say that the dispute is about 2 commissions. And I imagine that ultimately is what it will end at. What did Kenyans mean?
It is not. Mark has made it very clear what the dispute is.
That is what I...
Mark has made it very clear what the dispute is. Let us not miss the
This is
dispute.
my understanding.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm avoiding discussing the dispute because I hear it is in court. But ultimately, ultimately, what the judges will have to determine now that it has been taken to court, because this was a decision of PSC, and they are saying they have some functions and responsibilities in the Constitution at Article 127, which permits them to do what they did. And they are basing themselves on Article 127 as read with the other laws you are quoting. SRC is saying, this is our mandate, constitutional mandate under Article 230. That is why I'm saying, ultimately, the first decision that any judge who will preside over this matter will have to deal with. And I think that is what's coming out. How do we interpret the constitutional mandate of PSC against SRC?
Okay.
And I also, you know, agree with my brethren here when they say, if you look at Article 249, all these commissions are independent and they are expected to protect the Constitution and uphold constitutionalism.
Exactly.
So that the thinking that we may have based on emotions or not, that only SRC is a commission required to protect constitutionalism, is something that I think is hogwash.
Okay.
But let me go.
I wish
No,
the matter
let-
before
let-
judges
let me
today-
go.
I wish the matter before judges today was to question whether this is greed or not.
Let me
Because
go.
the question before
Unfortunately,
every
it is not.
Kenyan's mind today
You know, I want to
is
inform
not
you.
whether
no,
PSC.
I want to
No,
inform
let
you.
me let me finish, sir.
No,
Let me
Mark,
finish.
Mark, I've not responded
Okay.
to, you know, the,
All right,
the
I'll wait for you.
contributions.
And we need to take a quick break and come back with this discussion. But
You know, Mark,
yes,
I said so many things MPs earn. Mark, how I wish you gave me those things.
But it's clear
What I'm telling you,
what
I'm telling you, Mark.
For the break.
No. Let us have it sober. I want a debate where we discuss with honesty and sobriety the salary structure in the public
By the way,
service.
it's Kenny's
By the
panel.
way, we are taking time. I will tell you later that you are being diverted to non-issues. There is no money members of parliament have given themselves. And members of
Nobody has
parliament
even
have
said
no
that.
power to give themselves any money.
And that is not what we are saying.
Start
Ladies
from
and
that.
gentlemen.
Nobody has said that.
Right.
Mark,
You need to go on a
give me
break.
this
Peter, I need to take a
imaginary
break.
monies
Yes.
you are talking about.
Actually,
It's not
And I
imaginary,
confusing.
Mheshimiwa.
This
In
country.
fact, I'll reject them.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we need to take a break. We're coming back with the discussion. We have a lot of time to do this. All right, let's take a break. We're back.
Members of Parliament and Senate, as per Article 260 of the Constitution, are state officers. Consequently, the setting of their remuneration and benefits is the exclusive responsibility of SRC. This payment will not only create inequity in remuneration and benefits for state officers, but will also lead to demands for house allowance by other state officers. The additional cost to taxpayers of such an action will be an estimated Kenya shillings 5.2 billion per year. The Commission has taken steps to ascertain compliance to ensure that all payments that do not have SRC approval are stopped. The Commission will take legal action to stop any payment that has not been set or advised by SRC and recover such payments.
And welcome back. At least that's where it began, and that's where the push began. So I'm back here with Irene Otieno, Mark Bichache, Mheshimiwa Peter Kaluma, and Cyprian Nyamwamu. Let's talk about the independence of the commissions. And Mheshimiwa was speaking about the independence, but I'd like to draw the line in this independence debate. Yes. Independent from what? From each other? From each other's function? Because it's been confused with, we should leave us do our work. But I'm thinking it's independent from interference. That's my interpretation of independence.
You see, to be helped is to go to actually Article 127 of the Constitution, and you read under Sub-Article 6, which says that the Commission, Parliamentary Service Commission, is responsible for A, providing services and facilities to ensure the efficient and effective functioning of Parliament. That's the only thing in this whole article which Parliamentary Service Commission may rely on to try and say that it has a mandate when it comes to other allowances for members. And you can see clearly that it is not providing services and facilities to ensure the efficient and effective functioning of Parliament. But when you go to Article 230, which talks about the SRC, the details are very clear in terms of who establishes and fixes the remuneration and the allowances, all the details of state officers, which members of Parliament are. So I am not a lawyer, and I'm not going to be concerned about what will be the issues before Parliament, but before court. The plain reading of Article 127, Sub-Article 6A, is very clear that Parliamentary Service Commission, not MPs, because somebody has been saying that it's MPs who have granted themselves. Yeah. It is the Parliamentary Service Commission, which is chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly.
National Assembly.
Yeah, so we know who is there.
Yes.
So the beauty.
Article E, so that we debate it.
Yes. E is part of that. I read it. Performing other functions necessary for the well-being of the members of staff of Parliament. Okay. Members of staff of Parliament prescribed by national legislation. Members of staff.
Members and staff.
Necessary for the well-being of the members and staff of Parliament. Okay. Now, when it comes to welfare, there's even the PSC deals with welfare. You are really ambitious to imagine that what the intention, and by the way, I spent the whole of my youth in constitution making. This constitution, the reason I am very passionate about is because I went to jail 19 times so that Kenya can get this constitution. We must defend it, protect it, and ensure that people do not start to interpret it to satisfy their greed. You talk about from there, talking about how greed is like a bottomless pit. We cannot allow people to use the constitution as a weapon to bludgeon commissions, independent commissions, so that they have to give them what they want, or we will cut the budget.
What if the constitution aids them in doing that?
The constitution does not aid them.
What if it aids them? They interpret it the way it's convenient for them.
It aids them. That's what. Here is the answer.
Yes.
This Parliament, where my brother Peter is, by the way, we are even age mates. That's why we speak the way we speak, the way we do here, is because if this National Assembly continues the way it is going on, 1 million people are going to come and they will ban that Parliament.
Ken,
because I have to give other people an opportunity to
response.
I have to give them an
Parliament, National Assembly. You know, we need to.
But we know what we mean. We know what we mean when we say Parliament. We know what we mean.
So mine is just a two, when we're making reference to SRC and PSC, really. Before, we did not have the SRC. So why did we, as a Kenyan people, gift ourselves in the Constitution and SRC? It was simply to cushion ourselves against the mischief that we had previously witnessed as taxpayers of elected leaders adding their own salaries. So obviously, if you're talking about the role of the PSC, and then we brought in a new creature, the new creature was coming in to sort a mischief, and the mischief was clearly that. So there's then a distinction of what is in the mandate of SRC and mandate of PSC. Even without an interpretation of reading that constitution, we just look at the historical fact. Why would this new creature come in? My other concern also is that as we are talking about independence of the commission, and we are saying it is really to protect against interference, Mijungu, as you've mentioned, but so that we also not look at SRC alone. But I think some independent constitutions are also failing us, because if SRC has put in place a gazette notice, the 2017 was quashed by the elected leaders moving to court, and the court agreed with them anyway. So we've reverted to the 2013. But then where did the controller of budget? The baton was pushed to the controller of budget. But where did the controller of budget approve and agree that this money is being withdrawn and paid? So for me, I think even all the independent commissions really need to start speaking to each other.
Together.
Because when there is an attack by the elected leaders on SRC, then COB, controller of budget, should be cushioning them by saying, okay, you want to do this, but will not approve this withdrawal. The Auditor General also says,
but so long as the request goes to them, how do they refuse?
When did
No,
we
but you need to look
attack
at the
SRC?
Your act is a direct attack on
It looks-
SRC.
it looks like
Let us not debate imagination.
It is not. It is not.
No, that one we will do.
Yeah, yes, that's what we are talking about.
If it is
Yeah,
an
that's a
unnecessary,
direct
no, let me respond to you.
Just because I need to hear from Mark.
There
at this
is a
point.
way in which budgeting and the functions of the arms of government are put in the constitution. Budgeting is a function of parliament. And let me tell you, among the budgets we have always reduced are the budgets of parliament. You will not come with your imaginations to say, when we determined we are removing this pay for SRC, it is vindictiveness.
But the timing
No, you
is
say
very
that.
suspect.
You
The timing
say
is
that.
suspect.
Timing. No,
The timing is suspect.
Timing, perception.
No, Ken, I want to say,
Yes.
let me tell you,
You said
Perception.
there
this
is
time-
no single money we will give SRC which they don't deserve.
Okay.
Let's
We will be failing in our budget and function.
Let me weigh in. The function of a leader is not to find loopholes by which to justify a wrong thing. That's not leadership. Leadership is doing the right thing. In fact, this parliament should concern itself in going above and beyond the requirements of the constitution to make it that constitution even more alive. Parliament should address itself and say that PSC should correctly go to SRC and debate these matters with SRC, because SRC is where the imagination, the hearts and the minds of Kenyans have vested their hopes in protecting ourselves from the largesse of our leadership.
Okay.
That is the spirit, the heart and the desire of the Kenyan people. Now, leadership, and the reason why they are our representatives, is I should not be at any point in disagreement with my MP, because he should be representing what I want. So Parliament should be clear and hear us correctly, that for us as we sit as a nation, PRC has no mandate to increase even an iota of their salary.
PSC.
Not even a single dot, PSC rather. The SRC is where we've decided and determined that the fate of civil servants, state officers and every person working representing Kenyans, that their fate shall be determined there. So it is inexcusable for Parliament to read the Constitution and look for loopholes instead of finding ways of improving it. And we've paid the price for this. Part of the reason we have prison prefects leading county governments is because Parliament watered down Chapter 6 of the Constitution. And these are the things we cannot allow to continue to exist in our country. The spirit is clear. We do not want you to earn salaries so high, have perks so high, that you do not understand the pain and the chagrin of the average Kenyan. So it's that clear.
Okay.
Let me
Peter,
come in and say that.
Peter, let Peter speak.
I'm the one now speaking.
Yes.
I think we are agreed. It's just that because, you know, my colleagues are consumed by emotions. They don't realize it.
We are consumed by
I
reason.
started by saying that Parliament has no power to give itself pay.
We are all in
And
agreement.
I think in the course of their, you know, discussions, they have confirmed Parliament never awarded itself any pay.
Who
But
said
it
that in
has
the
power
first
to
place?
receive and
Parliament
not ask where the
never
money came from
awarded
within your account.
itself any pay. Can we agree to that? Because if there is a problem, we can go back there. Number two, we have agreed that salaries and remuneration deals with remuneration, benefits, and pay in the entire, you know, for state officers, and of course advisors for public officers. What I think is coming out is whether the thing you call the right to housing under Section 31 is a remuneration or not. And remember, Ken, I started by telling you that this is a matter over which we disagree. ultimately, when we disagree, clarity will come from court on it. But I'm telling you that in as much as we disagree on it, don't attribute the decision to Parliament. Number two, the chief legal advisor of the government, and remember telling you that, has advised that, housing benefit under Section 31 of the Employment Act is not remuneration. Let me, give you another, information. SRC itself, in choosing to pay some categories of, state officers and public servants, what is the equivalent of housing benefit under Section 31, as in their letter, said very clearly that those houses are not remunerative. So that it is your interpretation and mine. And with greatest respect, when your interpretation and mine disagrees, don't tell me you were jailed 17 times as if I was not jailed for this constitution. Every Kenyan must protect this constitution. The independence you are talking about, Ken, is in the constitution. Don't import provisions. They are in Article 249. If you believe Kenyans made a mistake having the Speaker of National Assembly Chair, SRC, and having
PSC.
the clerk, PSC,
Yes.
and having the clerk of Senate being the secretary, having the Chief Justice chair the Judicial Service Commission, and having the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary being the secretary to the Judicial Service Commission. I mean, go back and amend this thing.
Those are
But
not provisions we argue with,
what I'm saying,
We got it.
don't
We got the
create,
point.
don't create an imaginary pay for MPs
we got the point.
and debate it when I'm here. If you have any doubt, Ken, I've honored my colleagues to come. Ask me what I earn.
You've
Don't
not honored
debate
us.
imaginations.
Usually let us be fair
Okay.
enough. You've
All
not
right.
honored us
Yeah.
by
But
coming.
why are you
by
debating
coming.
imagination?
And their
Imagination, so
public
that we can
document.
get it
That is
from
not,
him.
there's
Yeah.
a public document, as in SRC Gazette Notice 2013. So that is no imagination. It's a public document that is in the public domain, and that is what we make reference to when we are talking about you pay. So it is not imagination, and I don't think it is fair
The
for you to
issue
tell us
is-
that you have honored us,
The
Mheshimiwa.
issue
We have
is,
come
by the way,
here to
you
put it into
know,
perspective.
I will not continue when you continue debating imaginations.
But what
You're entitled to your position.
I want
Which is the-
information. I
Ken,
want
I
a
want to
debate,
ask-
Ken,
No,
which
can I ask you a
informs
amount that
the
they're
real
paid? That's what
situation.
it
So
means.
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Irene, you know Kenyans are watching us, and we must not behave like little children. We have 5 very big issues before us. And these 5 big issues ought to be discussed and Kenyans to get clarity.
We're coming back to discuss
We
them.
cannot mix things here
We're coming back
so
to
that we
discuss
leave the
them.
meeting
Don't
when people have not
debate
even understood what we were.
imaginations.
but
I think Mheshimiwa has made his point. If we have a question about what they earn,
Ask
we will
me.
ask them, right?
No.
We
We
not
cannot
ask
ask
him.
him.
It's very
No,
because it's
subjective.
subjective.
It is
Because
very
it's
subjective.
subjective.
There is a
To help
public
Kenyans.
document.
Don't help
Ken.
Kenyans.
Why
We
should
should
you
be
ask?
debating
No.
the pay structure in the entire government.
No, that
I'm
is not
telling
our
you,
All right,
your
gentlemen.
obsession with MPs is
Gentlemen,
misdirected.
Before we go for the
Gentlemen,
break,
no, we have
there's
to take it
something
at the top of the
Don't
hour. But we're
debate
coming back to
imaginations
begin
when
with.
I'm here. Ask me what I earn.
Mheshimiwa, we're coming
know
back
what
to
you
this
earn.
discussion.
We
We're
know
coming
what
back.
you earned
All right.
by SRC's
Don't-
Gazette
don't-
Let's
Notice
take a
of
break.
2013.
You are.
SRC versus the members of parliament.
No,
Who?
PSC.
PSC.
Yes.
You totally don't want us to
No,
mention
we
members
are
of
not
parliament.
there.
But I still insist that because they have 7 members, almost
They
8
do,
of them,
they do.
right?
It's
And the
there-
rest of them are
it's
appointed
there-
by parliament.
it is
But
there in
granted,
Constitution.
let me take it away.
Ken,
Peter,
Ken,
granted. Versus
I know it is
SRC
juicier
versus
to go for
the
MPs,
Parliamentary
even in
Service
things
Commission.
they're not concerned about.
All right,
But
I've taken
why
it
don't
away.
you grant him?
So the question
Yeah.
is this: I want to allow you to talk, but the other thing I want to address is 2 facts here. Parliament during the Kamkunji, they were talking about invoking the separation of powers. Let PSC do its thing. And Kaluma here is telling us, and all of us agree, that Parliament is not involved. Senate and National Assembly is the PSC. But they sat in a Kamkunji to discuss this very thing. I'd like to know about that. So let me give you an opportunity to respond first to Kaluma, then we can discuss that.
Now, I really thank you, and I want us to remember that there are 4 issues before this table. The first issue is what the contention is, whether the Parliamentary Service Commission has powers or a mandate to actually grant members of parliament housing allowances. And I think we are very clear on our side that the Parliamentary Service Commission does not have that power. In the Parliamentary Service Commission, increasingly, hear my words please, increasingly is becoming like the trade union of members of parliament. And by members of parliament, we include senators. That's the proper definition of members of parliament. Senators are members of parliament. We are seeing a trend where the Parliamentary Service Commission is increasingly becoming the trade union for members of parliament, not the facilitator, according to Article 127, of parliament to discharge of its functions. That is the second.
Because they benefit, because they are also
exactly,
members of staff.
they have a conflict of interest and a direct interest in what
the
is
members
happening.
of staff.
Exactly. Yes. The other issue which we must not lose is that our members of parliament are the 2nd highest paid members of parliament in the world.
They will dispute that.
Can the lies continue?
No, you see,
compared to which
this is why
this is the civil society talk.
This is how it becomes a
just
shouting
throwing
match.
words against which
Peter, you have an opportunity to respond to him.
You allow somebody
No,
to
they
say
give us full details.
Exactly.
You will respond.
You see, this is the shouting match that is very
But at least you should be
unacceptable.
able to tell us compared
Yes,
to
The Business Daily,
Yes.
that I've actually forwarded the document to you,
Okay.
The Business Daily 2013, the global comparative research conducted by the Afrobarometer, which is based in Ghana, if you know the Afrobarometer. The members of parliament are some of the highest paid members of parliament the world over.
No, they're not the second. They're just some among many.
They are second. In
They're
Africa,
second.
they are ahead of
Ken,
everybody
you
else.
want to quote newspaper knowing how the media is hostile.
Afrobarometer,
But it's never
And how they
disputed.
create stories.
Okay.
Which they don't know.
Why can't you contain yourself?
No,
Let's
no.
see if you
Contain
No,
yourself.
I
We'll
cannot
come
say
to
Contain
you.
as a
yourself.
leader.
Respond.
We'll come to you.
falsehoods.
We'll come to
Without
you.
foundation.
Then respond.
Yes,
Can I
we'll come to
offer,
you.
can I
Then
offer a
respond.
solution? Can I offer a solution? It's a very simple
Afrobarometer.
solution. If there's a disagreement, then show us how different the figures that have been spoken here are different from what you receive. And then
That
number
is how you respond.
And number two,
That is how
But it is
civilized
wrong to
people
say,
conduct debate.
don't talk of
Civilized
civility. I'm more
people-
civilized than you.
Civilized people conduct debate by
Can we
waiting
have
for
one person
one.
speaking?
Okay.
Can we
Exactly.
have one person speaking?
So in
Yeah.
concluding,
Yes.
I've already made 3 points. Number 1 is that we are dealing about the Parliamentary Service Commission and its mandate vis-a-vis the SRC. The second issue is about our constitution and defending it so that the institutions we have established, Irene has made an extra point, that including the control of budget, they all must pull in one direction in the interest of the people of Kenya. Number 3, and this cannot be pushed under the carpet even with a lot of nagging, is that we must make Kenyans know that our MPs are the 2nd highest paid members of parliament in the world. The Afrobarometer, which conducted that research, is not a club of pedestrians. These are university professors and global researchers. Let parliament in Kenya publish a different research, which shows different facts from what I have.
This
finally,
research was done by the UK-based Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority.
Now, finally, I'm telling you this, that if there is a member of parliament in Kenya, senator or member of National Assembly, this I have to speak for Wanjiko. If there is a member of parliament in Kenya who is unhappy about the poor pay we are giving them as if they did not know about it, let those members resign, go back to private practice, let them go and do more lucrative things.
I think you've made your point now, yes. I'm going to come to Irene, but he has to respond because it's gotten right.
Let me now talk.
Desk. Yes.
I have had, the media and the civil society hammer this thing that members of parliament in Kenya are among the highest paid. Two things if you read that thing. I want to tell you that before this new constitution, our members of parliament agreeably were earning very highly. I can tell you the 9th and 10th parliament, my brother, was earning in untaxed funding over 1.5 million. And that one you'll confirm. And that is why I started by agreeing that there was a good reason as to why we established SRC and we will not interfere with that, mandate. Where we disagree is where the salary which MPs were earning then is still being used to measure their earning today. I want to tell you, Ken, that the members of parliament in Kenya are, to me, earning the lowest pay as compared to any parliament in the world. And I want to tell you how. When you see things like the Parliament of India there, and your governance people, when you go to New Delhi, you'll get a residence for all MPs you use. At the end of your term, you leave it. So that what is being compared to between the member of parliament in India to a member of parliament in Kenya, for instance, is what the member of parliament in India is getting in terms of entertainment allowance. When we established SRC under this new constitution, I can tell you from the salary which was being earned in the 9th, 10th parliament, the current parliament earns barely 10% of it, several years later. And let me clarify this thing. This is why sometimes we are going up. People have been, informed about so much that members of parliament are earning. Ken, today I want to tell you, and you can confirm it, if you desire to. The basic pay of a Kenyan member of parliament, gazetted in 2013, was 316,000. With an annual increment of 10%, today it is 346,000. That is what I earn in basic pay. These are the things you are being told members of parliament are earning, are things associated with the travel of a member of parliament. And let me soberly tell you my position. When we went to parliament in the 11th parliament in 2013, Mark, which was the first parliament under this new constitution, we said, we do not want those things you call car grant. We do not want those things you are calling mileage. By the way, MPs in Nairobi don't get mileage. So the idea that you have things like mileage is, brooding an inequality between members of parliament. Because mileage is paid as a reimbursement for your travel from Nairobi to your constituency and back. And remember, a member of parliament, we like them, we don't like them, are running, two offices, one in the constituency, one in Nairobi. And then we told SRC, we do not want these things you call motor vehicle maintenance allowance. I remember in a Kamkunji we had, I told SRC, even if it is a Toyota Corolla or a Vitz or a Pulka, if it can be organized, all I want to do is to operate between Homa Bay Town constituency and Nairobi. If there is a way in which Parliamentary Service Commission, in my view, can even say there is a bus to transport people, like tomorrow, I will be going to Homa Bay for a function to return on Thursday for a budget reading. Just ask how many people are following the route I'll be following from Nairobi, Narok, which MPs are being dropped, and tell them when they can be picked. I have no problem with that. But it is this same SRC you are defending, which said we will subsidize the cost of your car. And then when these things are put on pay, Ken, and this is why I'm being emotional, instead of giving me transportation, you reimburse my travel. then you portray it to Kenyans that these are remuneration. How can they be? Why don't we as Kenyans, in terms of seeking solution, just say that this mileage is too much, motor vehicle maintenance, which is being treated as remuneration, which it is not, is too much. These things you are calling car maintenance.
It's a benefit, not a remuneration.
You take them out. You get what I mean? Give me a car as small as a bit, but don't give me these things in reimbursement and lie to the people of Kenya. They are my remuneration.
Mark, no, they are a benefit.
Yes, and by the way, no, pardon me. There is a problem at SRC. I just beg. Huh?
Can we talk about the problem
if you look
SRC,
at the judiciary,
I'm going to talk about it.
If you look at the judiciary, just on this transport.
Yes.
I'm telling you, and that is why I'm begging.
Okay.
Let us look at the public sector generally. There is a way in which we are being, directed to Parliament when we should be looking at things globally.
We will come to that.
Ken, when you go to the entire executive,
we'll talk about it.
No, I'm talking on transport.
Okay, just briefly on that because we'll come back to it.
When you go to the executive, everybody, including an assistant chief, as a means of transport. How many times have you reported here magistrates being hit by vehicles crossing Mombasa Road from work? You jail people, you walk with their relatives to work. There is a way in which SRC has been captured by the executive to subdue Parliament and the judiciary.
Okay.
And Kenyans are being directed Parliament, judiciary. You are not looking at inequality.
I'm going to come to that because these are the concerns that Parliament has raised also in terms of inequality and how SRC looks at other departments. Mark.
The day Kenya will find a solution is the day joining politics is not a business plan.
Exactly.
The day joining politics is not a means to wealth is the day this country will start finding reprieve within itself. Because the fact is, and let's be very clear, for me there's no difference between 300,000 and 600,000. Because the average Kenyan listening to me today cannot imagine how it feels like to put 300,000 shillings in his pocket. In fact, he cannot imagine how it feels like to go sit down at his job and do his job, and every time he sits down, he's given a sitting allowance. He cannot imagine that. The truth of the matter is this, and let's be clear, whether it is Parliament, it is CSs, it is governors, it is people with 3 cars on the road instead of 1, the truth is that our leadership in this country has been given too much money and they're now insulated from the realities they must deal with. And that is the core issue. The core issue is not JSC, PSC, and all of those things. Secondly, on independence, you cannot say PSC is independent from Parliament in as much as you can say GSC is independent from the judiciary. Its job is to represent Parliament. Its job is to represent parliamentarians. So we can surmise correctly so that GSC and PSC push the agenda of parliamentarians. And that said, we cannot then remove blame from them when they receive packs which they claim they do not want. If they were serious, let them sit down as leaders and say, as Parliament, we are passing a resolution today that we do not want these car grants. We do not want our clandays to be on our medical cover. If that listen,
I'm going to come to you.
Ken, please allow me. I will not be a party to a debate where you
respond after you have finished.
Where you abuse an institution of governance. I mean, if what are these clandays? Where are you getting them from?
Everything I have said
Ken, that he has to do that. But we are very serious.
And I say second wife.
And polygamy is lawful in Kenya.
Yes, so and I say second wife, right? Second wife.
You have to. Why should
second wife on their health insurance. All of those things.
Yes.
If parliamentarians are serious about the austerity measures the president talked about,
they should declare.
About
But he said,
the belt.
But he said himself that they have denied part of the budget meant for Parliament themselves.
No, but
he said that.
But you see that
yeah, he said
listen,
that. Yes.
The issue that we are raising here is that whether you've denied an extra excess, there is still excess we are talking about here. That's the issue.
Budget of Parliament last year.
Okay. The total about 150
what was appropriated to Parliament.
Okay.
and what was appropriated to the judiciary. The judiciary got nearly a half
Okay.
Yes.
of what Parliament got. Yet the judiciary
don't know
has
why.
8,000
contribute.
8,000
Okay.
workers,
No, it was
and
not
Parliament
that.
only has
And
1,000
That's
workers.
okay. Let me. I wanted to ask Mark this question, but I'll ask you this question too. When we cut the budget, we are not vindictive. I want you to respond to that. He said that when they cut the budget of SRC, because
Let
that's
me
what I
answer
said.
that.
No. I want
it
I want
was
her to
Shana
speak.
Let me,
Yes.
you'll assist me if there is need to later. So the cutting of the budget for me is a very deliberate attack on SRC. The timing first is very suspect. Secondly, also if you look at the decision of the court that it relied on in quashing the 2017 Gazette notice, the court was very clear that according to them, Salaries and Remuneration Commission had not done the quality of public participation that was required in reviewing and evaluating the worth of the job of the state officers, which we all know, in our opinion, and all of us know the worth. No. So when you cut their budget, are you not deliberately then setting them up for the same issue that the court pointed out, that because they did not have resources, they were unable to conduct public participation to that level.
Quality.
But yes, quality. But I do not hold brief for SRC, but what we are telling the House, whether you cut that salary or not, we shall get resources to work in solidarity with our agents to evaluate and ensure that the reasoning behind the court when they quash that Gazette notice does not arise again. Secondly, allow me first, I've already answered what Mijungu was mentioning, but my question is, why do we then make reference to countries like India when we are looking at our pay structure? Our GDPs are quite different, so why don't we then look relatively to how much we have?
We have
no. Our reality is that we have a budget of 3-point-something trillion.
2.7.
We can only manage to get this and this amount, so we already have a deficit. So how are we spending our resources?
And that is what is in Article 300.
And look at the Constitution,
exactly.
and it says the principle of public finance management is to ensure that you inculcate equity and ensure that there is equality. So what does it give? Using our public finances to give 250 to another entity, and you're looking at 13,000 for a taxpayer.
Responsibility.
And also,
does it count? The responsibility, does it count?
The responsibility?
Because you're comparing two different people altogether.
No. Look at our reality. Whether it's responsibility, what work are they doing? And the hard-paying taxpayer who wakes up. But let me not get into that. No. Allow me, Kaluma, to finish first. Second issue we are mentioning, Parliamentary Service Commission. So our position is that it is an institution, and we are talking about what is their mandate. I, as a taxpayer, my position is that PSC has to take individual responsibility per commissioner. Because why did they allow that? Our law says that if you oversight or you oversee a process of waste of public resources, then you are personally, yes. So that is that. Just wait. So that we are not assuming. We know that they did not go by the process.
You are not the judge over the matter. Let us not
discuss. Allow me my time.
Yes.
My position is not that they abuse, or my position is that it is an unconstitutional act.
And that is why you are not the judge.
Wait, yes, that is. But let me tell you one thing.
My position is different.
There is the court, we have the court, and again, we have our court of public opinion, and we know what it is. There is the law, but even as the law reads right now, my understanding is that PSC overstepped its mandate. So that is one. We are coming for them individually. Secondly, also,
good luck.
Yes, we know the law is on our side, so I really don't think we need the luck. So mine is just to say, let us look at Article 2265 that talks about personal liability, and let institutions understand that the moment you're in a commission, it is past the commission itself, but we are now going after personal liability. And let us be alive to our reality. Look at our GDP, and let us not compare things that we do not understand. India. Let us look at our reality, our minimum wage, our debt level, our recurrent levels.
Okay.
I only wish our parliament could react as quickly when people are dying in Baringo of hunger. I only wish our parliament was so sensitive to the issues that affect the common mwananchi that they would run in panic and have kamkunjis to discuss the chagrin and the pain that Kenyans experience every day.
Okay.
That's the only shift that we need.
You don't think they do that?
They don't.
You don't think they do that? Okay.
Not in Kenya.
Ken, my brother here has applied to be a member of parliament, I don't know how many times.
Once, 2007.
He has not been elected. You may try and be a member of parliament next time if you believe there is anything much other than service people have an opportunity to do there. But I'm telling you,
to be a member of parliament
in fact, that is why you are not elected, because you imagine of leaders things they don't know. The request I want to make, and I think this is the idea of information we are going into. When you look at the national budget, I can tell you, on recurrent expenditure, just as the judiciary, the total budget of both Parliament and the judiciary is not even 1% of the national budget.
It's actually 1.79.
I'm talking of the recurrent.
That's what I'm talking
the
about.
pay. What I want to clarify.
Recurrent cannot hit 1 point.
It can't.
Percent, 1.7%.
Percentage of the total budget, it cannot.
You see,
it cannot.
now, this is the problem I have.
Recurrent would probably
Up
develop.
to today,
Guys,
Nyamuamua was budgeting.
0.7. Make your point.
No. Don't go that direction.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm telling you that there is a bigger picture to look at. You are focused on two institutions, which I've told you are barely, surviving. You are not asking, now that it is 1% going to Parliament and the judiciary, where is the 90-something point something
going?
Going.
And you think
and that should be the focus.
The executive.
And that is why I'm telling you, there is a good reason, my sisters and brothers, as to why the people of Kenya say there will be Parliamentary Service Commission and there will be Judicial Service Commission. You've never had an Executive Service Commission. But the functions of the Judicial Service Commission, the Parliamentary Service Commission, have nothing to do with what PSC, Public Service Commission, does. The people of Kenya were sending a message, Ken, a governance message, that if you leave the judiciary and Parliament without an independent commission to protect them, there will be a problem from the executive. The problem we now have is that these institutions are underfunded, and yet the media and all Kenyans who do not care to look at information are being told all your money. By the way, you may think when you listen to this debate,
who's underfunding?
You may be forgiven to think. You may be forgiven to think that Parliament is running some bank within
That's a question
there.
for you.
We don't do that. I'm informing
budgets.
Okay, but
I'm
who does the
informing
budget?
you.
Who does the
Now,
budget approve?
I wanted to address
Answer the question,
the cutting of the budget of SRC.
Before then,
No,
just
no, no,
answer
no.
before
Answer
then.
the
Before
question.
then, tell
Who
us
is underfunding the
budget
Judicial Service Commission and who is
and
underfunding
Parliament.
the Parliamentary Service Commission?
The problem we have in Kenya, just to bring understanding on the matters budget. Now, keep quiet. By the time the budget lines, and it is in law, are coming to Parliament, sectors of government have been put together, they have bargained. That happens outside the treasury there. I can tell you, Ken, by the time that matter is coming to Parliament, Parliament has very limited range. And these are the things we need to look at. You talked about reducing the pay of SRC. If we were unfair as members of Parliament or vindictive, we would have interfered with their salary, we would have interfered with their remuneration. They have all that. The things we did away with, Ken, in helping SRC and all Kenyans to stop wastage. You remember there was a complaint before that the current commissioners went in and forgot about the cars the previous commissioners were using. And without appropriation and budget by Parliament, decided to use a whole 100 and something million to buy cars. Now, when you then bring a budget, Ken, where you are claiming cars again, what do I do with it? Are you saying I should not, as a responsible member of Parliament, say this is unnecessary because when I do that, I'm being vindictive? Let me tell you, if that is the thinking of any Kenyan, there is no way the Parliament, the current Parliament, will be intimidated in the discharge of its constitutional mandate.
What of the timing, Mheshimiwa?
No, we don't care about timing when we are doing our work.
No, you should care about timing because of perception.
No.
Because of perception.
Let me tell you, Ken.
Because that's what we think right now.
Let me tell you, Ken.
Because they did that.
You can have your perceptions, but budgeting is at particular times. And I will not approach it wrongly, because there is some imaginary timing of vindictiveness to SRC. If SRC is claiming due money to enable them perform their functions, and I invite you to read Article 249. Parliament is obligated to adequately fund all commissions to discharge their duty. So that if Parliament were to hamper the work of a commission, that commission would go to a dispute resolution mechanism and it will be upheld.
Okay.
Let us not just think of evil in the leaders.
Yeah,
okay.
you.
Full stop.
Thank you.
And then Nyamwamu wants me to complete. Nyamwamu, go and run and be elected.
No, you see,
and I'll tell you why you can't be elected.
Personal,
yes,
those are personal things. I don't respond to those. We came here to represent the people of Kenya, and we are not.
No, you don't. I'm the one who represents the people of Kenya on this table.
No, you represent the people of Homa Bay.
Yeah.
So now, the issues that are before us are very clear. It is the power and role of Parliament to preside over the issue of budgetary allocations. Yes, there's negotiation that goes out there. But, for example, last year, there was a very serious cut in the budget of, that was presented by the Judicial Service Commission. And it was reminding us of even what was being called the revisiting of the judiciary. Parliament has always had a higher budget than the judiciary, even with the fact that they have more than 8,000 staff and judges to deal with, whereas Parliament has nearly 1,000. And they are located in one place, whereas the judiciary is located all over in the 47 counties. So we are saying that going forward, the people of Kenya will continuously lobby Parliament and make our voices heard so that our taxes are used for provision of services. The executive, there is wastage going on there, and we know where it is. For example, State House alone uses more than 3.7 million shillings a day on petrol alone to just service 28 cars. That is about 180,000.
Which is impossible.
Which is impossible. So when it comes to the legacy of wastage in this country, it is it is enormous.
Yes.
So that we actually start using a very sharp scalpel to ensure that this wastage stops.
Okay.
One minister having 8 vehicles running all over him and it's disturbing us. So that is the line we have to go to. But what brings us to this table today is about members of Parliament through the Parliamentary Service Commission awarding themselves, you get, through the Parliamentary Service Commission, awarding themselves 250,000 monthly allowance.
Distinguish between PSC and Parliament.
He's just saying
I said
through.
How difficult is that simple thing?
He said through. Yes.
Why,
you know my problem
why this heckling? I can't understand the heckling.
Don't call it heckling.
It is heckling because
we need to allow him to talk.
We need to allow him to also take your advice. You keep quiet and let others talk.
You are talking misinformation.
But you see, you
then we'll have an opportunity to respond.
And you want to spew this as realities
no,
for civil society.
You will have an opportunity again to
and he
respond.
knows.
Yes.
His strategy is to disturb us so that we do not say what we want to say. So our focus is very clear. We are against housing allowances for members of Parliament. The Parliamentary Service Commission must be stopped on its track, and the members of that commission must be surcharged. Individually.
Okay.
The second point that we are making, which has to be very clear, is that our members of Parliament are paid competitively. And we are saying, before you even speak about increasing or awarding something more or reviewing something, we are going to be very close to the SRC to ensure that the interests of the people of Kenya and the taxes of this country are not wasted in giving people things they do not need to do their job.
We have
to be very clear about it.
I'd like to have your comments on the following, because Francis Atwoli believes there's a reason why this is justified. Let's listen to this.
And you expect handouts from me, then I expect you to pay me well. These are taxpayers. And unless Kenyans change their culture of converting honorable members of Parliament into their private banks, then they are justified in their quest to demand more allowances, more than what they are having. Because this is a unique culture for Kenya.
All right, even as we comment about what Francis Atwoli believes, because he commented generally on the part that is given to members of Parliament, aside from just the allowances. But remember, that was triggered by this conversation on the house allowance.
Yes.
I like a comment on that, and I'd like to begin with Mark. your comment on that perception that if you need something from them, then you need to give them more. And then I want you to go further and talk about not just the members of parliament, but there's this inequality that members of parliament feel that should be checked and should be addressed. For example, they think that we are not focusing in the right place. For example, executive, like you mentioned, even the independent commissions themselves. That's why they feel justified. Seven, as you comment on that.
First, the rain started beating us when in the promulgation of our new constitution, we decided to continue with a thing called CDF. Because we added to the role of a parliamentarian something that is not their core mandate. This is why a parliamentarian will try and run on bridges and roads, and every ambulance has their name on it, because we are trying to remove the role of governors and the executive away from them to give it to parliament. This is also the reason why our legislative agenda is suffering, because the parliamentarian is busy trying to see how he'll impress you by a road to your house instead of impressing this country with legislation that moves us forward. That's the problem. So this country has been robbed blind by parliament that is too busy trying to do what governors should be doing instead of focusing on legislation. And that same mentality goes into the Harambe mentality and what we lawyers will call Mbehombeho mentality, where we think that the purpose of an elected leader is to go and be borrowed from. This is why also Nairobi had a big furore the other day, because they were debating about who gives out more money. It is not the purpose of any leader whatsoever to give out resources, because if they focused on their core agenda, which is legislation, which is coming up with ideas that moves this country forward, we would not need to beg. If we expanded this GDP, we would not need to beg. So it is our own selves who have decided that the purpose of an MP is to be begged from, that are imprisoning ourselves to the MPs and leaders who can afford to buy the vote, whichever directly or indirectly. And the second issue that you asked, and this is critical. As a country, we need to sit down and ask ourselves, what are we fighting? We are fighting a war against corruption, against impunity, and against mediocrity and wastage. Now we will fight them high, we will fight them low. Whether your budget allocation is less than 1% or is 19% or 23% as some ministries are, we will ask you to account. We will ask you to account for our textbooks just as much as we'll ask you to account for our medication, just the same way as we'll ask you to account for the fuel that you use in your cars. Which is why Kenyans were happy when the ministry gave an edict that said that certain people cannot drive VIP cars. Because if I have the discipline to wake up early to get to my meeting, why don't you have the discipline to do the same thing? So Kenyans are not zeroing in on parliament. We are clear. Wherever corruption may show its face, wherever mediocrity and impunity may show its face, we will not be shy to tell the president, the deputy, the chief justice, the deputy chief justice, the speaker, whoever, that you are doing wrong by the Kenyan people. And that is a stand we will take to our graves.
Even as you respond, Irene, I'd like to read a text from one of the members of parliament. This is Silvanus Osoro, who says this, and he's talking about the three of you. He says, the problem with the struggling elites, that's how he describes it, is a set mindset that if I don't have it, then nobody should. And that's all I'm saying with you panelists. The vigor exhibited in prosecuting their points, albeit ignorantly, right, speaks volumes. Unnecessary bitterness. Now, remove the house allowance from, and he lists them, just my point, the question I asked, remove it from the president, the deputy president, down to the local chief. As you mentioned, they all have transport, even if it's a motorbike, right? Local chief. Then do the same to the members of parliament. We are not less state officers. We deserve equal treatment.
Ken, let me comment on what Atwoli said.
Okay.
And I think
but I really wanted Irene to weigh in, but you can comment on what Atwoli said.
You only picked the part which was juicy for the media.
Actually, I attended that press conference.
Everything he said.
The gist of his press conference was that. I attended the press conference.
The gist was that all employees are entitled to housing or rent in lieu if you cannot provide it. Where I fault is additional argument. I mean, the courts have decided that. Luckily, you are not a lawyer. go and read the decisions. There is a time we argued MPs are not employees. The High Court, the Industrial Court has insisted always. And that is why you even sue in the Labour Court MPs, speakers, county assemblies and others. I hope that one you are informed about. But what Atwoli is saying about we give handouts and others,
yes.
Let me tell you, when I earn my money, Ken, my choice relates to how I use it. I cannot demand more pay so that I give handouts. I have a choice on whether to give handouts or not. And I can tell you I'm one MP who does not give handout and have been re-elected. Yes, so that justification is out of the way. The fact of the matter is that all employees in law, and I'm telling even employees in the private sector, if you are not getting house or money to rent a reasonable house, including you can demand it from your employer. And what we are saying as members of parliament is that there is no way a right given to all employees will be given to all employees except members of parliament. That will not work. I, however, like the tangent that my brother here took. Except one thing. No, I don't want to talk after. Let it go circular.
Okay.
My brother, there is a lot of misinformation. In the CDF law that you are talking about, can we still think members of parliament are patrons, they're in CDF committee there? And let us start by agreeing that you may find it suitable as a person here that money should go to governors. But I can tell you, if you go back to your village, the only thing you'll see is that small CDF, which nationally does not even reach 30 billion. When I became a member of parliament, let me tell you, my constituency, 80% of classrooms were mud walled. How many ECD classrooms have been built in any county anywhere? The member of parliament in the current legal framework, Mark, sits in what is called a constituency oversight committee. And all they do is to ask, why is one section of the constituency being developed by the CDF committee more than the others? You get what I'm talking about? So that these fears we have, and that is why I started by saying there is a way in which we are proceeding well, but we are proceeding on the basis of previous law. In the previous regime, CDF was like pocket money to an MP. And remember when the CDF Act was nullified, Ken, I midwifed this new law which says the CDF committee will be an executive. The member of parliament under the constitution oversights expenditure, and it remains at that. So don't be. But let me tell you,
members of parliament who are facing charges today for misusing CDF.
Ken, let me just finish.
But they're going against the law.
No.
I think that's what he's saying.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you. If there is something we need to copy for even devolved units to work, is the framework of CDF. When CDF goes to Homa Bay town, you will not get that money until the people propose the projects it is going to. When the money is coming to the constituency, if I say Homa Bay Primary is getting 1.2 million, the authority to incur expenditure when the money comes will say, take 2 million to Homa Bay Primary School. And by the way, you should be knowing the contractor for CDF is the institution, the primary school through their BOM. So I'm telling you, it is very easy to catch this corruption. And if something is working, improve on it and use it as a model to better others.
Okay.
Don't kill things.
Straight to what Mheshimiwa has pointed out. So his concern is that when we go to our villages, we see nothing but CDF projects. But my question is just an example. Yeah, I go just in case you want to find out. Village? That is not the issue today. So let me go straight to my discussion. So is the solution then adding another layer of governance and cost in the name of CDF and MPs or demanding accountability from those counties? Because no, do not answer. Do not answer that question. Because for me, Mijungu, our constitution looked at two levels of government. We're having the national level and the county government. So if the county government is not working, as he's saying, not implementing projects, the solution then is that the taxpayers demand accountability on the money that has already been sent to counties, but not to have another layer. The county assemblies, the MCAs should. So that is what should work. And as we are talking about the CDF, which is unconstitutional, in my position. It's just another layer, an expensive layer.
Courts
Just
up
wait.
to the Court of
Just
Appeal
wait.
have said it is
Let me tell you to take your advice to shut up a bit, Mheshimiwa, and allow us also our time. Secondly, also look at the Senate. Look also at the Senate, where the controller of budget also allowed what we call the ward fund, which again is unconstitutional because the cost of managing that, and then the overlaps between oversight and implementation, what my colleague was saying. So let us just be serious that independent whatever's do their work, because there is no SUB should then say this is how you access funds for ward whatever. Let me go to my other issue, which is then what Kotu gentleman said.
Yes.
When you're looking at what Kotu, and it also shocked me because what we are also saying right now is it's not it should not be perceived as a fight against state officers, but our take is that let SRC work, because SRC should also advise on the public servants pay.
Terribly.
They should also do that. But you already see when SRC started and said we want to review and get rid of the duplicity of allowances that civil servants get, you then saw Kotu coming in and say you will not touch our turf. But if you look at our statistics, it shows that 83.6% of our population is in the informal sector. So when you take a significant part of our budget to pamper civil servants and state officers, what does that mean to the other section of 83.6 that collectively pay? Because the thinking of tax is that we all collectively pay, but the question has become we all collectively pay, but the benefits accrue to a select few. And that is what we are trying to change. And so my point of departure is that Kotu must also allow SRC to work in terms of civil servants, and we then also allow that state officers allow SRC to work. So we are not only looking at state officers, but the discussion should be viewed wider, and we invite Kotu to also say that let us demand strengthen public services and not insist on allowances. If the hospital is working, you don't need to go to a private facility, and then you'll foster equality because all of us have a strengthened public servant. But if only you can pay for a better cover, and there's a mama who cannot even access NHF, what are we talking about?
Peter, even as you respond, because I need to speak to these two gentlemen. Yeah, clarify. But even as you clarify, I also need to clarify.
Yes.
My brother, who's incidentally in Migori County and a lead on the ground, tells me, for example, in Migori County, they've done 150 ECDs from 2013. So he's a lead on the ground. So I think they've
people
done.
know the truth.
Yes.
Yeah,
The only point of governance I wanted to clarify is that the functions between our 48 governments in Kenya. I'm one person who believes we have 48, governments in Kenya.
Yes.
we do.
One national government and a government in each of the counties. If you look at how, the functions are then dealt with, they are vertical. There are functions which are national government functions. There are functions which are county functions. The governance questions which I saw the Court of Appeal, the High Court mulling over, because you remember the two courts have said CDF in its current legal framework is lawful. The court was saying, you will say national government is dealing with education, for instance, Ken. Is this national government on air, or how does it reach to develop schools? And there are some things we may disagree on. But look, before we had CDF, looking at our faces, we all schooled in rural areas. Which school did the national government build? So that the courts are saying CDF is a facility through which national government can have the things for the people falling within the remit of national government dealt with. The thinking of scholars and other people who lost it in court is that when you say national government and county, for national government to reach Homa Bay, it can only give that money. I mean, which law says that? The national government, the national government has its functions to do, and howsoever it chooses to do it, if it is lawful, let
just 1 minute, if you don't mind, because Mheshimiwa talked about having ECDs, but my question is, are we looking at buildings? You have an ECD, you have a whatever facility that you've constructed, but do you have the teachers? So again, the problem of CDF is that you go all out to show the electorates that we have an ECD. We have this facility, but you've not gone into the nitty-gritties of, do we have ECD teachers in that? Do we have whatever it is? Yes, exactly. But no. The law, if you look at public investment management guidelines issued by the Treasury, it says, as you put in place projects, you must talk with the line ministry. So there cannot be a disconnect.
Are you suggesting there
cannot be a disconnect?
Schools?
Okay.
No,
well, it's just a question. It's just a question and an observation.
Yes,
right?
We must.
Let me tell you that people keep talking about the work that the National Taxpayers Association does and the work we do. We actually practically live in the counties. Since January this year, I have been to 26 counties. If you go to Loima, Takwel, in Turkana, where I was, you find a dispensary, a health center that has been built by national government CDF, 300 meters apart. There is now an health center that has been built by the county government of Turkana.
The CDF cannot
It shouldn't. It can't.
Between those two,
Unless it
was built before.
Before, yes.
It was built before. You get both structures are on the ground, and you know what? None of them has ever been opened. There is no nurse. This one spent about 41 million. This one of national government about 56 million. That's 100 million.
Okay.
In building structures, none of them has a nurse in it. None of them has a clinician. None of them has a
no human resource.
So that's we are saying that we know what
functions. Yes.
I get you. I agree.
Okay.
So we are saying that on the ground. Okay. No. We were proceeding in saying that the questions that are here, which we have framed very clearly, is that the people of Kenya must not allow any institution or any caliber of state officers to be involved in mediocrity, in wastage of taxpayers' money, in awarding themselves things that they must not allow.
That one has happened. We are running out of time.
Can we discuss 1 minute? This is all I need to say. Yes. A certain MP has written to us and said that we are struggling elites. His only qualification for that statement is that he's in parliament. And that is exactly what the problem is. Let me finish.
Who says that?
Let me finish.
Let Mark speak.
Going to parliament should not be the end of struggling.
Exactly.
That's not right. Because why are the elites struggling? They're struggling because parliament and the executive has failed in executing its mandate to improve the situation of this struggling elite. So you cannot be responsible for a problem and you are the teacher who didn't teach us and laugh at us for failing our exams.
Okay.
It cannot work.
But Ken is unfair to my colleague.
No, but that's
so I'll respond to what my colleague meant.
We have to really finish the show.
And finally, let's be clear that it is that same condescending attitude that you think the people who pay your salary, the people who vote for you to go to parliament can then be referred to in such derogatory terms as struggling. That is the problem.
Perhaps he meant it positively that we are hustling. Ladies and gentlemen.
What Osoro meant is that you have elites who are detached from reality on the ground.
How do you know what to mean? We've just read what he said.
It is your interpretation. How I understood it is that when you look at these gentlemen, they appear to know everything, yet they don't know anything about their home. You are detached from reality.
I'm done with that discussion. I am done with that discussion, Irene.
Now, that's a young man I mentored, so I don't even need to respond to him.
I'm done with that discussion. As we end, because you'll have an opportunity for your last remarks, I'd like to show you the cartoon of the day, because I started right at the top with saying the Chinese are here. I'd like you to take a look at this. It will be all over the screens, and then I like your comments, and I'll begin with Irene on this. All right, this is a cartoon. Focus on the bigger picture, please. At the back there, it's Gikomba and the Chinese are now trading with us, right? And doing the work that normal Kenyans are supposed to be doing. Let me begin with Irene. Your analogy of that cartoon, even as you give us your final remarks on the way forward with the SRC versus the legislators.
Ken, I will not comment on that cartoon. They'll go first, and you'll come back to me on that cartoon because I take a lot of time. But my parting shot really is that we need to look as leaders. We should not reduce this discussion as it has been today, a matter of it's a fight. It should not be viewed like that. But let us look at Article 73 that talks about the responsibility of leadership. And it says that any leadership should then be consistent with our constitution and that it should demonstrate respect for the people. The action of our state leaders does not and has not demonstrated respect for the taxpayers who fund the system. And also that this position must bring honor, and remember that the same constitution says that you do not rule over us, but it's an opportunity to serve. So that mind shift or mindset shift is what we require from our leaders. But if they do not, because I know that is a tall order for our state leaders, we'll revert to Article 1 of the Constitution that says that sovereign power belongs to the people. Okay. So we can deal the last card on him. It is not at the court.
So you don't want to comment? Let me go to Mark.
The cartoon is bordering dangerously on Trumpian logic, where we hate all immigrants. So let's be clear that the person to blame and the entity to blame are not the Chinese people. The Chinese people have seen an opportunity and a weakness within Kenyan systems that they can manipulate and come and outdo us in selling second-hand clothes in Gikomba. So what needs to happen as a matter of urgency before xenophobia becomes a reality in this country?
You think we can go that direction?
We are definitely going that. The amount of vitriol I've seen on social media against Chinese people for various reasons is getting dangerous. And we do not want to be the kind of country where immigrants do not want to come to when we are trying to build our tourism industry. The government, however, has the onus and the task to ensure that every immigrant coming into this country comes to perform a special function that has been approved by the relevant
that we
ministry.
can't do as
that
Kenyans.
We can't do as Kenyans. And that's very critical, because when I fly out as a consultant, I go there with a specific purpose. And if they find me stepping out of that line, they will deport me. So that's the same thing Kenya needs to do. But in conclusion, this country needs to wake up. And the wake-up call that we need is that we are A, a wasteful country, and B, our wastefulness is based on shielding our leaders from our own realities. Our leaders are shielded from our schools, they're shielded from our hospitals, they're shielded even from the traffic they have allowed to exist in this country. We need to get back to a place where a leader understands what it is to get into a matatu. So a leader understands what it is to travel on a train. A leader understands what it is not to go VIP in our traffic. The day the Minister of Transport will be stuck in traffic for 2-3 hours, traffic will begin to change in this country. And that's what we need to push for. So it is not against Parliament, it's not against anybody. It is a fight for our children. And yes, we are struggling elites. We struggle every 2 months to go to Baringo to help the people that you've ignored. We struggle every day to sit in this studio until midnight without pay to defend the Kenyan people. So the struggle, Aluta, continue.
All right.
Yes, Ken, when you look at the cartoon, we are seeing, a Chinese doing second-hand clothes. And I saw another one in the Nation newspapers.
Yes.
I think it speaks to, just how porous our immigration system, particularly the work permit regime, is. And I think as a leader, what I'm now invited to do is to oversight how we have allowed a situation where foreigners are engaging in business which do not require, special expertise in our country when we have so many people, young people especially, without jobs outside there. But you see there is a greeting. I think there is also a reminder to our president that in as much as we engage between states with China, he has an obligation to protect his people. He should not let his people, the business which should be done by, his people, to be the business of, some Chinese around. And I think it is something as leadership we have to take seriously, because that cannot happen in any nation. Can the people of Kenya created parliament as they did other institutions? The problem we had is that people still compare the current parliament to the uncontrolled parliament which had authority over their pay, increment, and establishment. I want to tell the people of Kenya that the current member of parliament's remuneration is determined by SRC, and I'm not aware that members of parliament can be vindictive against SRC or anybody in the discharge of their mandates given to Kenyans. What I want to request is that we be objective. We've had a debate. I came here purposely to make Kenyans know that we could be debating these issues of pay based on misinformation. And I think we've been able to allay so many of them. My wish, therefore, is that let us, take our eyes. I know it is very juicy when you say members of parliament. Let us look at our entire government structure. And the day you will look at it, you will realize that your members of parliament have been made a scapegoat. Monies, even in terms of the pay and remuneration, are being stolen, elsewhere. You remember, Ken, when President Uhuru Kenyatta came in, there was a task force to reduce parastatols. Instead, we are increasing more. The recommendations of that task force is hidden somewhere. You remember the Constitution talks about cabinet secretaries. We now have something called CAS, Chief Administrative Secretary, whose role you do not know. But I can tell you they are earning more than legitimate constitutional office holders like judges and members of parliament. And I want to say...
But the constitution allows the president
you
to create
have
positions.
you have PSS.
Yeah.
You now have PASS. And let me tell you the situation, Ken. I approve heads of the executive. And when they leave, they have 3 cars or more. What members of parliament are asking for is to be facilitated to do their work. We want to serve and we want to sacrifice. But remember, when a member of parliament comes from Mandera and Turkana, you agree with me it would be unfair to request him or to demand that he walks from Turkana to Nairobi and back. Give the means of transport. Okay. If the current system is expensive, go for the VETs and the pool cars I spoke about. I don't think it would be fair anywhere, Ken, that we say people like those serving in the county who work within their county are entitled to, housing benefits, which SRC, as I hear sworn affidavit saying, they hold state functions. When you are saying a member of parliament should not have, a member of parliament is the only state officer required to operate between his Turkana and Nairobi each time. Do you want them to operate on the streets, or where should they? And let me end by saying, as you do this, I want the media, in as much as they could be, spewing, this thing about members of parliament, Ken, especially NTV, do a research on where members of parliament, especially those ones who are not resident in Nairobi before election, lives, and you'll realize it is difficult. You may talk of mortgage, my brother Nyamwamu, but I want you to take that 20 million. Consider that as a member of parliament, I have to repay it within 4 years, not 5 years. Divide that 20 million or 35 million you are being duped, we get. And by the way, the 3% rate is across the public service. It is not only MPs. But ours is more expensive. And I can tell you, if you go to our mortgage system, barely 5% of MPs can have taken that mortgage and can afford it. Why? Divide a mere 20 million mark with 48 months. You'll require way beyond the net pay of an MP. Okay. It is impossible.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
I looked at that cartoon and it is communicating a message that our country is being recolonized. Our independence is now becoming academic. Our sectors of the economy are falling to foreign control. And that cartoon is telling us that state capture is becoming a major problem in this country. And from this cartoon, why Kenyans are very focused on members of parliament is because this is like our board of governors. They are elected to represent our interests, but members of parliament in Kenya do not represent our interests generally. They are seen fighting for their welfare and not fighting for the economic, political, social progress of our people. That's what that cartoon is telling us, and that's why the focus on members of parliament is very, very acute. Parliament is the one which can secure the independence, the rule of law, the strength of institutions, and not the executive. Executives everywhere in the world are to be suspected and to be doubted. Ours is not even being monitored. Parliament has not even done anything to cut on these appointments that the president is making everywhere. That is their remit. They are not doing their job. If I was to grade, and I've done this with the credible institutions, you have to realize that when it comes to the oversight, representation, legislative roles of our members of parliament, Kenyan parliament is doing very poorly.
Because they're not
this is the thing. And so we have to push them further and further so that they do their oversight roles, because all of us cannot do our oversight roles. Okay. And that cartoon therefore helps us to remember that if you want transformation to happen in Kenya without a revolution, you have to focus on parliament, we have to go to them. And the parting remark is that when members of parliament are vying to be elected, they actually know what to expect as their pay. If this pay is so bad, please let members of parliament look for other things to do. Let those people who are publicly minded and who have a civil mind and who are publicly spirited to vie, go to parliament, and defend the interests of Kenyans.
All right. I know if we open up that discussion from that point, we will not end.
opening it up.
No, we are not opening any discussion. And Mheshimiwa, you have spoken. I want to thank you very much. At the end of the day, we ask the question, does such a conversation achieve anything at the end of the day? But I know they're listening, and he's a member of parliament, so he has a bigger platform than we all do.
That's right.
Let's do the last part of the show. Now, the date is the 14th of May, 2013, preceding a period when members of parliament wanted more after the salaries slash SRC, that's Salaries and Remuneration Commission, slashed their pay. Now, the civil society activists brought pigs to parliament to protest demands by members of parliament for higher pay. They dropped the pigs at the main entrance and fed them blood as they blocked members of parliament from accessing the chambers. Interestingly, some pigs on display had MPs' names painted on them, especially the ones who had been on the front line of the push for higher pay. Now, the anger exhibited by the activists was provoked by a motion by Member of Parliament Mithika Linturi to have the Salaries and Remuneration Commission disbanded. Now, the pigs, which were intended to portray the MPs as greedy, licked the blood before they found themselves engulfed in tear gas, smoke and military water cannons and the anti-riot arsenal. Again, the pigs were also hit by the water cannons as the activists ran helter-skelter. However, 18 out of the protesters then were arrested for creating disturbance of peace. Among the protesters were constitutional lawyer Yashpal Gai and civil rights activist Maina Kiai. Boniface Mwangi, an activist, was the face of that protest. A good place to end tonight's show. But even as we end, I like to just, because you talked about CDF, there's this tweet from Silas Jakakimba, which captures what CDF has done to this country. He says, whereas both sides have vigorously defended their niche of arguments, I believe CDF should not be abolished at all. There are several reasons for this, including, but not limited to, gaps that have seen devolution as was envisioned, right? It's fully delivering in the grassroots. That's from Silas Jakakimba. I think he captures the spirit. I want to thank you very much, Irene. I want to thank you, Mark, Peter, and of course, Super, for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. I hope someone somewhere has heard. Have a good night, and thank you for watching. Next week on Tuesday, same place, same time. Good night.